Welcome to the Nano podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernlin, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of nano companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of nano-cap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. This week we have JW Roth, CEO and founder of Venu, stock ticker VENU. Venu Holding Corporation is an entertainment and hospitality company that designs, develops, and owns and operates upscale music venues, outdoor amphitheaters, and full-service restaurants and bars across the United States. JW, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
So you have a kind of an interesting story of you growing up on a ranch out in Colorado and then becoming a police officer. And actually, you're not the first CEO I've talked to on my podcast who was a former police officer. And the previous CEO said, basically, there's no better way to get training on how to deal with people than a police officer.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. It's not the reason I took that path. I just always grew up as a kid wanting to be a cop, right? And so it was one of those things that I don't know if you call it a bucket list thing, but it's the path that I was always on. I always loved business, and it worked out for me because I ended up in a profession early with the Denver Police Department that allowed me to work at night and work on building my business during the day. And it was a fun 5-year run for me. In some ways, I got it out of my system, right? Otherwise, I'd be sitting around today going, "Damn it! I should have chased bad guys for a while, which would have been fun."
Yeah, so tell me a bit more about that, because usually if someone's kind of building their side business in their spare time, it's something that you can kind of start small and scale up. Your next business was a food distribution business, which basically succeeds through scale. So how did you bootstrap that yourself, or how did you get into that? What made you interested in that? Tell me a little bit more about that before we get into kind of your normal life now.
Yeah. So I grew up on a small ranch here in just outside of Colorado Springs. So I've always been around agriculture and most of my life. And so when I left the ranch, growing up to join the Denver Police Department, I always knew that at some point I wanted to go build my own business. And so I started small. I started working at a food distribution company called Universe Foods while I was on the Denver Police Department. And that led to an opportunity for me to, at a certain point, about 5 years into my career, leave the police department and then start raising capital to expand my food distribution business. And ultimately, I left working for other distribution companies and started my own.
So, okay, I not to beat a dead horse, but did the guys in the police department think you're crazy? What was the thought when they're saying you're like, I'm going to raise capital, I'm going to quit? They're like, no. This is actually we're a brotherhood. You stay here for life type of thing. How is that culture change, and how did that go?
Yeah, what's interesting is you're very accurate in sort of your perception of how that would transpire, because there were guys on the job that's like, look, you never leave the Hells Angels, right? Well, you can't retire from the Denver Police Department either. You either retire like the rest of us, or it's odd. And so I grew up in a family from my grandfather back, all Denver firefighters. And so, it was odd for them too, to see, that my passion was business first, but that I enjoyed the Denver Police. So it's like somebody that has a hobby of fly fishing, right? Their business is their business, but they love the fish. My passion was to go build a business. I just never had that opportunity, early on. So I had to have another job to pay the bills. And why not have a job of doing something that you love, which in my particular case was the Denver Police Department.
So we'll fast forward a little bit to you're working at your own distribution company. Things
Yep.
are going great, but as you kind of mentioned, the theme of this interview, you still had that passion you wanted to itch. You
Yeah.
had this kind of thing in the back of your head where you've been going to concerts and you got some extra money to spend at the concerts, but you're still standing room only on the lawn where you have to bring your own blanket and it
Yeah.
takes 50 minutes to go get a beer and back and you miss half the concert.
Totally.
What exactly kind of struck you that you're like, okay, this has bothered me for too long. I'm going to have to be the person who solves this. I have to come up with a new concept. Tell me a little bit about that Genesis story.
Yeah. So, as I built my food distribution business and I built my agricultural businesses, it got to the point in my life where I could go and enjoy a passion of mine, which is live music. So my wife and I, we had traveled a lot, and watched live music every place. And, live music didn't keep up with sort of the other genres of entertainment. Let's take the NFL, for example, or Major League Baseball. Those owners stepped in and they built stadiums that were sort of really fan-centric, right? Elevated food and beverage. You found restaurants inside the stadiums now. Back before rideshare, you were parking out in left field and walking. Then rideshare came along and took a big piece of how you get to baseball games, football games, concerts, blah, blah, blah. So I looked across the spectrum of live music, mainly outdoor amphitheaters, and said, listen, they're old. They're dilapidated. The average amphitheater is owned by a municipality and it's over 40 years old. So I saw the opportunity to take a page out of the NFL, take a page out of Major League Baseball's playbook and say, look, let's go out and build some venues, some music venues that are fan specific, that cater to the artist, and that can rival what football fans now enjoy when they go to the new Raiders Stadium, right? Or baseball fans when they go to Yankee Stadium today versus the old Yankee Stadium. And so I started by hiring BCA and out of Atlanta, great architectural firm. And I sat down with them and I said, look, let's put on paper what would be the ultimate live music venue, and not care about the money. Let's just put it on paper and see what that looks like. So we did. And at the end of the day, we put on paper what is today the Ford Amphitheater in Colorado Springs. But when I put it on paper, it would never pencil, right? I mean, it was over the top. It had rideshare, elevated food and beverage. My backyard, being a music guy, my backyard's a little odd, right? So I have a backyard where I have a small venue in my backyard. I think I have the world's largest residential fire pit suite. All these things.
Really?
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take my backyard where people loved coming and just squish it down and make a whole bunch of those backyards in my venue. So part of the idea was to create these fire pit suites, right? And so we did that. And so by the time we were all said and done, putting it on paper, it's $100 million. Well, there's no way I can go out and raise $100 million. People would think I was crazy and they would never invest in it, blah, 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 blah. So I just funded it myself. And I built what is today the Ford Amphitheater. Ford Motor Company came along, put their name on it, and it's the coolest place ever. But the problem was, and I knew the problem was going to be, that I would, if I wanted to go build 20 of these or 50 of these, which I'm doing, I had to find a way to make it pencil. So I took a page out of the NFL's playbook and I said, let's start with public-private partnerships, right? Let's get municipalities that benefit economically because of these venues to participate with it, right? Because an amphitheater is like a tide that rises all the boats. Well, when those boats all rise, there's more economic impact to that city, right? So I started to do that. And I hired Ryan and Company out of Dallas, Texas. Ryan and Company is the biggest private public partnership tax firm in the world. And they said, you know what? I think you're right. I think municipalities would like that. And so let's go talk to them. So they went out and started talking to municipalities. Long story short, today I'm in the middle of $1.2 billion worth of construction in all of these other markets, building with municipalities. And we'll double that to a couple $2 billion next year. And so that was the first sort of way that I could sort of see how we were going to do this in mass scale. Second to that, I took a page out of Ritz-Carlton's book, right? So what is Ritz-Carlton? They take a piece of property, then they build an entity on top of that piece of property, and they go out and sell fractional ownership. which in their case are condominiums, right? And that process helps build the hotel and build the hospitality and all the other piece parts that go along with it. So I did the same thing. I took these fire pit suites, that concept came out of my backyard, and I said, let's condominiumize it. Let's go out and let's sell these fire pit suites, which would end up selling around 40% of the physical venue itself in exchange for the other half of the money. So it went from $100 million I had to do it myself to this new concept that is public-private partnerships and fractional ownership. Now it pays the whole thing. So today I'm building billions of dollars worth of these with that sort of mentality and that sort of structure. And it's allowed the company to do what it's done. So there's sort of the genesis of how we went from, the concept of an idea to where we're at today. And then again, a lot of it is, if you build something the fan loves, then the money will all take care of itself. I'm the kind of guy that will go see music about any place, right? Because I love live music. So I've been to places where, you could lose a tooth. That's the kind of place that you go to. But my wife, on the other hand, over the last 30 years, she's a different girl than the one I kissed at Leonard Skinner 30 years ago. So today, she doesn't want to walk through a scary parking lot. She doesn't want to sit in a seat pinched up against some guy she doesn't know. She doesn't want to, sit at a table where it's sticky. She wants, she likes a nicer, more premium environment. So I figured if I could build a venue that she would go to, other people would like it as well. So that's kind of what I did.
So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, obviously we've danced around it plenty, but in your own words, just like succinctly, what is Venu Holding Corporation?
Venu Holding Corporation is a publicly traded holding company that owns a variety of assets. It owns real estate primarily as a hard asset. Then it owns fractional pieces of the actual venues themselves. And then it owns 100% of the operating entities that operate these venues. And those operating entities partner with companies like Live Nation, Ticketmaster, Access, AEG, Aramark, on and on.
Awesome. And so to kind of go back a little bit, you're talking about like your backyard and compared to how you kind of built out the first venue. And then you going on to talking about how you want to make your wife comfortable, make sure she has a great experience. How much do you just really see this as like you're hosting people at your backyard just at scale? And then you just want to make sure everyone has a good time?
It's exactly what I did. I don't think I should describe it that way more. I don't, but I'm going to start because it's exactly what we did. I felt like if people came to my venue and they experienced the same thing as they experience when they come to my house, everybody's going to love it. And at the end of the day, Polestar nominated us for Venue of the Year worldwide this year. So, and they did that because of not the fact that this venue is the cost that it is. It's not that. It's the ambiance, right? I sell music, but I really sell ambiance and I sell experience. You can go see the Eagles a variety of different places. You can see them in some dump amphitheater somewhere, or you can see them at the Ford. The Eagles are the Eagles. They're great. They're an unbelievable band. One of my all-time favorites. The difference is the ambiance in which you see the Eagles. It's the ambiance in which you experience the Eagles. And so at the end of the day, I'm not recreating music. I'm creating a different way to enjoy music. And what I build is ambiance and experience.
No, I'm thinking of correlations between like a beach on the ocean is a beach on the ocean. But there's beach clubs that are beautiful and a drink comes right to you. You got a great cabana. And then there's other times where you're just sitting on a patch of sand.
Totally. That's exactly right. It's the same thing here. I have cocktail service and elevated food service to every single suite. But I wanted, because of the way I grew up, I did not grow up in a wealthy family. I grew up in a family where going to a concert required climbing a fence, right? So at the end of the day, I didn't want to just build a venue that was for some rich schmuck. I wanted to build a venue that everybody could enjoy, from the guy that's sitting on the grass to the guy that's sitting in a premium suite. So when you sit on the grass in our lawns, It's the best artificial turf there is. It's all built with HydroChill, which keeps the temperature down. You still have the easier access to the bathrooms, easier access to the food and beverage. My wife hates having to stand in line at the girls' bathroom, right? I think every woman does. So at the end of the day, I thought I'm going to solve that for everybody. So I make bigger bathrooms and more of them. And so what I'm trying to say is I want the experience and ambiance to be elevated regardless of where you're sitting, regardless of what you paid for your ticket, if you walk into one of my amphitheaters, because I've lived on both ends of that food chain.
So next I want to jump into kind of the fractional ownership. So one thing to cover before, I know like my friends who have season tickets to the Minnesota Vikings and they have a brand new stadium. They bought the seat license separate from the tickets. Yeah. Which sounds kind of similar to what you all did. So do they actually like own that box in the Ford Theater forever kind of thing and they get to go to every concert? Or do they get first dibs and a discount? But if they don't want to go, say they're not an Eagles fan and Eagles are in town, they can say, hey, I'm going to forego this. And then they just don't pay for those seats. Or how does that kind of fractional ownership of like the fire pits work?
Well, it's just like if you bought a condominium. You own it. You own the tickets that come with it. You own everything about it. The only thing you would pay over and above your purchase of that condominium is food and beverage. So if you want to order food and beverage to your suite or whatever, then that's separate. But otherwise, you own that suite. You take the depreciation every year, like any other real estate transaction. The only thing that would be sort of odd in it compared to like owning a VRBO is that you don't vote. There's not like a homeowners association where you vote. We actually manage that suite. So I'm going to go back to your illustration. The Eagles are coming and you don't like the Eagles or that's not your favorite band. Well, then you have two choices. You can either just not go and let the thing sets empty, which I don't like, or you can resell those tickets. And you can do those one of two ways. You can either go out there and do that yourself, or you can kick them back to us and we'll put them out on the various platforms and sell them. Part of the business strategy inside of Venu is dwell time and butts in seats, right? So I don't make any money unless there's butts in seats. So my job is to help you as a suite owner either enjoy it, come and enjoy it, and I'm going to sell you parking and food and beverage. Or if you're not coming, I want you to give them back to me so that I can go out and sell those tickets. Again, to put butts in seats that I then sell food and beverage to.
And then this might be a dumb question, but do you provide a cleaning service?
Yes. So at the end of the day, it's totally triple net. So there's a piece of every ticket that is escrow. And then that escrow goes to repair and maintenance and just taking care of the suite, paying all the insurance, paying the taxes, just all of the things. So it's a triple net to the guy that buys it.
And then to go back to the fractional ownership, and I might have read this wrong on your website, but you can not only just invest and buy a box to start kind of with help with the down payment and get it started, but you also can just straight up invest in the venue too, correct?
Totally.
And so tell me a little bit more about that structure of how there's the holding corp that's a publicly traded company. They have a fractional ownership in each of these different municipalities where they have an amphitheater where it's part public, part private, part club owners. Tell me, because it sounds complicated, but it's also not very complicated.
No, it's not. It sounds complicated, but it's not. So the holding company Venu is a publicly traded company, trades under the symbol VENU, trades on the New York Stock Exchange. That entity owns assets. So it owns a piece of all of the amphitheaters. It owns 100% of all the operating entities. It owns its parking services and just all of those things. So if you want to, and you want to own the global company that owns all of it, you would invest in VENU. You just go to the stock, whoever handles your stocks, and you buy the stock VENU. Now you own a little bit of it all. Or you can go to our site, Venu.live, click on venues, and go in and actually buy a piece of an individual venue or fractional ownership in an individual venue. Sometimes we have a lot of people that buy a suite and never go to it. For example, they buy a suite in Dallas, Texas, in one of our venues, but they live in Green Bay. They buy it simply for the investment. They buy it. They take the depreciation. They give us the suite back to manage, and we sell those tickets for them. And then at the end of every month, we send them a check. So,
and are they allowed to sell their suite, or is that kind of a transaction that you help with?
Nope, they could sell it. We could help with it, but they can also sell it. For example, at Car Springs, there's like 40 people on the waiting list trying to buy suites.
I can bet.
Every once in a while, one will come up for sale. I think we've had 3 of them come up for sale since we finished the venue. They were all divorce related. I probably shouldn't say that, but that's why they came up for sale. And they were immediately purchased by folks that were on the list.
Well, that seems like a tough thing to split.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard splitting the divorce, right? Yeah. So you got an 8-person suite, and 4 of them were with you and your ex-wife. Yeah, that doesn't go over very good. You're talking about wreck the ambiance.
Yeah, exactly. So, so as you're kind of like, it seems like basically a dream job. That's something you on a farm as a kid could have never imagined that you'd have, where you get to design the most beautiful venues around the country. The next kind of question I have is just how you choose locations. I know it's probably a combination between like demographics. Are they near some sort of airport? Does the municipality want to help you out? But is it mostly like, hey, if the municipality really wants to help us out, that's 80% of the fight, and then everything else can be solved? Or how do you guys kind of weigh out those different things?
Yeah, so there's a site selection process that we go through. We have about 50 municipalities that are bidding for us to come. So that really doesn't enter into it. Because everybody wants us there, and they're all standing there the same way. They got a check in one hand and a real estate deed in the other, and they want us to come build in their municipality. So we start off with routing, right? So where's our routes going? From Colorado, we're routing out of Denver to Colorado Springs to Kansas City, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Fort Worth, and then we split off and we go to Texas, and we go to Houston and El Paso. So that's a route. We're building a route right now that's coming up the East Coast, coming out of Florida, and the one's going to tuck along the coast, and the other one's going to come inland a little bit up through Tennessee. But anyway, there's the. So first part is we put these routes together. Once we put the routes together, we pick municipalities where we feel that sponsorship is going to be good, the location fits for naming rights along an interstate, something like that. We run demographics using Spotify and a variety of other tools that we have access to that will tell us fractional ownership will be easy to sell here. Tickets are going to be easy to sell here. All of those kinds of things. So once they check all 3 of those boxes, then we start looking at what actual municipalities are on our list and where do they fit, and that kind of thing. The municipality is actually the easier piece of the equation. Yeah. Just because it didn't used to be, but then when the Ford Amphitheater became as successful as it is, and other municipalities started to realize the economic impact that these things bring, then everybody and their grandmother wants to do it.
No, especially if you're good about booking people and such, where you get these people with these cult followings, where everyone has to come from out of town because this is going to be the concert of the century for X band, and they don't play like this very often, and blah blah blah. I can really imagine that you could really draw a crowd from not just like the local people coming in and buying a few extra beers.
Yep, totally. Yep, and that's the way it works. And one of the ways I de-risked this business early on, much like we do in the food business. We build brands and we build food, but we don't actually own grocery stores. Here, it's the same sort of idea, right? So we de-risk the business by becoming and building a business that was really a participatory landlord. That's who we are. We build and own venues. And then we go out and we partner with operators like Live Nation or AEG or whatever. And instead of collecting a rent, we split the profits. And so in our particular business, we felt like it was better to de-risk this. And instead of going out and trying to find ways to book content, we would partner with content. And that content is, provided through your bigger promoters.
So I saw on your website, you have a few other things that you all kind of have in the pipeline that aren't amphitheaters. Tell me, just as we kind of wrap up here, tell me just a little bit more about that and what gave you the inspiration to start a steakhouse and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so part of the idea of building hospitality inside of our venues or related to our venues came from the idea of trying to elevate the experience, right? So we're building restaurants like a seafood and chop house, the steakhouse, like clubs, all of those ancillary businesses that we're building are really in some way tied back to either our music halls or to our amphitheaters. And so, for example, that the steakhouse that you're talking about is actually built into one of the amphitheaters, and that steakhouse will operate year round. But it is actually built, but it's built into the amphitheaters. We have clubs built into the amphitheaters, all with the sort of thought. The business thought is to increase dwell time, right? If I can get you to come early and stay late, I have an opportunity to sell you something that I couldn't do if you were just coming for the event. So you had to get there 5 minutes before it starts and you leave the second it's over. That doesn't help me. So in the business strategy that we're building, we're trying to build ways to get you there early and to keep you there later.
Now, I know this is the holy grail of NFL owners currently as they try to build new stadiums, is that they don't want to build a stadium. They want to build like a mini city. Yep. And have like activities for people to do outside, have shops, have stores, have condos even, and have it just so people can like basically like you said, increase the dwell time and increase the revenue per person entering in the door. So question I usually ask people as I wrap up here, but again, it's becoming more and more redundant, especially when I talk to someone like you, is what gets you up in the morning? What gets you still excited about Venu and such? But it seems like this is a passion project from the start, and everything you do is thinking, would I like this personally and such? And so it's kind of a redundant question at this point, but do answer if you got anything.
Sure. I mean, build stuff that I love, right? So I saw an opportunity to disrupt a space that needed disrupting. And I saw an opportunity to do that disruption in a space that I love. And so I started off down that path. The reason I took the company public, love him or hate him. And some days I love him and some days I question him. But Elon Musk is a super smart guy, right? And when he took his companies public, he did it for a couple of reasons. But my guess is that he saw an opportunity to make his customer, his shareholder, thought that was super smart on his part. And in doing that with Venu, I did it because obviously our company is fan founded, right? I am a fan from the bottom of my feet to the top of my house. So we're fan founded, but I want to be fan owned. And so it gives an opportunity for anybody to own Venu, to own a piece of what we're doing. And so, I'm proud of the fact our stock has done well. I expect it to continue to do well, as we add to our balance sheet. We don't add little tiny chunks. We add hundreds of millions of dollars every time we do something. And so over a period of time, I feel very good about our equity, and I feel good about the opportunity that it affords our fans.
Well, JW, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
If the listeners want to hear a little bit more about like where to see the best concert of their life, where to buy a sweet new condo box at a venue, where should I send my audience?
Venu.live.
Easy enough. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Thank you.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement, therefore, by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast express disclaims all liability for any individual